In this video, I'll talk about how I do my CGI and photographic composites from start to finish. G'day everyone, it's Chris here from Chris Mitchell Studios. I want to share with you today the process that I use to create my composite art. I'll go through from where I get my inspiration from, right through to the little tweaks in Photoshop that can add realism. So before I do is furthered, let us start. So throughout this video, we'll be using this photo as our example, and we'll be going through the steps that I used to create it. It's the same for every composite that I do. So step one, let's get an idea or some inspiration. We can get our inspiration from looking at artwork, and I mean looking at artwork, not just taking photos of it. We can get it from watching movies. We can get it from reading books and magazines and comics. Also video games. We can get it from watching TV, although I find TV to be a bit of a time suck, and there's a lot of rubbish on there. Other places can be looking at other photographers' work, including Instagram. Now, once I get an idea, I just write it down into this little notebook that I've got. It's just an A4 ream that's been cut in half. And I file the idea away for future reference. And this is the sketch that I made for our shot that we're doing today. As you can see, you don't have to be really good at drawing. The main thing is that you yourself know what everything means. Some of the shots that I put together form a story or are linked in some other way, and I put them together in an A3 binder. Now we can move on to gathering our reference material. A good place to start is Google Image Search. Click the Image tab, find an image we like, click on it, click View Image, then simply drag that image into a folder on our computer. Here are some of the reference images that I managed to pull together for our example today. They include planes, costumes, an example of expression that I'm thinking of using, and a type of feeling that I'm thinking of for the photo. For our example image, I also downloaded some blueprints from blueprints.com of a P51, and I used the blueprints to help guide me make the plane. Obviously the plane has been altered somewhat, but these are a good guide. Some of the reference images are printed up and put into the A3 binder, and I use these to help me in the model making later on. In the third part of the process, this is where we do the 3D rough out, and this is where the image starts to take shape. Here is the rough out of our example image. You can see it matches the final one pretty closely. You can finish off the 3D model now, or leave that until after the photo shoot. Once you have the model the way you like in Blender, there are a few measurements to take that will make the photo shoot much easier. Click on the model's eyes and then the camera, go to the Measure It plugin and link the two objects and click Show. This will give you your camera to subject distance. Then select just the camera and note down the camera's Z rotation as well as the camera's height. Most important is to note down the camera's pitch or X rotation. This will make the final composite more believable. In this scene, as the model isn't sitting on the ground plane, we need to measure the seat height and subtract that from the camera height. We also need to scroll up to the top of camera properties and note down the focal length. This is the information sheet with all the data written down, and I use this during the photo shoot. There are various places that you can go to find models. A few are local Facebook groups, Star Now and Model Mayhem. On to step 5, the photo shoot. There are a few things to get for the photo shoot that can make the final composite a lot easier. They include a flash hot shoe bracket, and you just take the 1/4 inch mounting screws out of it. You then mount the cold shoe into the flash bracket. Then you can affix the bracket to the protractor with the rubber bands. And this contraption is used to match the pitch of the camera in real life to the one in the 3D model. The hot shoe level is handy for getting your camera nice and level. Of course, by this stage you should have your costumes and any props that you need. A couple of tips are to shoot in the RAW file format instead of JPEG, and to use a colour checker. This is the photo that we got for use in the final image. Now we can get our images ready for Blender. In your raw conversion software, make sure you set the colour space to sRGB and export in JPEG at 100% quality. In your image editing software, you can cut the model out and then save the image as a PNG or TIFF with transparency. In this step, we'll put everything together in Blender. We will go to File, User Preferences, and in the Add-ons section, we'll check that Import Images as Planes is enabled. We will also check in the Scene tab in the Properties menu that the units are set to metric or imperial. Now it's time to add our image, so we Shift A, go to Mesh and click on Images as Planes. In the dialog that pops up, we'll navigate to our image, select it, then check Diffuse and Transparent, check Use Alpha, and then input the height of our image. And then click the Import button. As you can see, our image has been imported and it's nicely cut out. Now we just need to align it with our camera. So we click on our camera, check the rotation. I just Control C, then click on our image and transfer the rotation data, Control V. At this stage, we can bring the layer with the 3D model back and simply place the image where we wish. I find it easiest to tweak the scaling and position of the image from the camera view in rendered mode. It's now time to check our camera's focus. We just select the camera, go to the Camera tab in the Properties menu, click on the eyedropper in the Focus tab, and then click on the image. Once the scene is to our satisfaction in Blender, we can then render it out ready for Photoshop. And here is a quick run through of what I've done in Photoshop. Firstly, we clean up the bottom of the wings. Then we add extra exhaust smoke and a layer mask to make it more real. I also render out the photo by itself from Blender, and this way I can use the resulting image as a mask for adjustments later on. Then we have the extra plane in the background that was rendered on a separate layer. This too has a separate rendered image as a mask. Then we add some extra smoke and some extra fire. The muzzle flash for the guns are added. Then finally I merge to a new layer. And this is the finished photo after a little more post-processing in Lightroom. As our example image didn't have the model standing on the ground, I'll just do a quick run through of this image. Firstly, we match the saturation of the model a little better. Then we take care of the values of the character in the background. Then we darken the scooter in the background down a bit. And here is our separate layer that we use for masking. And then we make the glass a little more noticeable and a little more again. Then we take care of some of the hot spots in the image. And we tweak that scooter a little bit more. Then the most important part, creating some realistic shadows for our model. And there you have it. That's my workflow from start to finish. My hope is that you've picked up an idea or two for your own workflow. And so the steps again are: get some inspiration and make sure that you take notes down of your own ideas. Gather reference material. This can include props, costumes, emotions, and design elements. Make a rough 3D model of your scene in Blender. Set up your final shots with the individual camera angles. Note down the camera rotation, height, distance to subject, and lens focal length. Find someone to put into your image. This can include family and friends, or a model from either Facebook or one of the popular modelling sites. Do your photo shoot and match the physical camera to the one in Blender. You don't necessarily have to match the cameras, but I prefer to make things easier for myself. Cut your photos out and save them as either PNG or TIFFs with transparency. Also make sure you're in the sRGB colour space. We can then bring our cutout images into Blender. Match the rotation of the imported image to the camera to get everything looking good. Also do the final tweaks from the camera view. And finally, finish your piece off with some post-processing in Photoshop or Lightroom, or both. Make sure to add shadows to match the scene lighting. And that's about all there is to it. Thank you very much for watching, and now go out there and create some art. Go on, what are you still doing here? Get out and make art. Nothing to see here. Who writes this rubbish? Oh, me. Oh, I should really write a bit more clear than that. I'm just talking gibberish. Hopefully we've got something good there.